Have you ever just felt totally drained by someone's presence? Like all your energy just vanished? Well, we're about to dive into one of the most uncomfortable but absolutely essential truths for getting by in this world. This is Law 10 from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, and it's all about an invisible infection, one you can definitely feel.
Now, look at this quote from way back in the 17th century. Balthasar Gracian wasn't just being dramatic here. This is basically a diagnosis. It's a really stark warning. The emotional states of other people are as infectious as any disease, and you gotta understand, the stakes are incredibly high.
And just so we're crystal clear, this is not a metaphor. It's a real psychological thing. When you hang around someone who is chronically unhappy or unstable, their state of mind just seeps into yours. Think of it like emotional secondhand smoke. You might not even notice it at first, but believe me, it is absolutely affecting you.
Okay, let's get to the heart of this. This law isn't about abandoning a friend who's just having a bad month. No. It's about spotting a very specific type of person, what Greene calls the chronic infector. These aren't people who are simply unlucky. They are dangerous environments. They don't just suffer from misfortune, they actively create it.
And this is where we have to draw a really sharp line. Temporary misfortune, someone loses their job, they go through a breakup, that deserves our sympathy, our help. But chronic misfortune, that's a whole different beast. It's a pattern of self-destruction that's just disguised as bad luck. So Law 10 isn't about being cruel. It's about recognizing a dangerous pattern and honestly protecting yourself.
So what does this actually look like in real life? Let's take a look at the textbook case of an infector, Lola Montez. In the mid-1800s, this dancer and courtesan left a trail of ruined men completely in her wake. And every single powerful man who got close to her believed the same exact lie. I can fix her. I can help her.
The pattern here is just undeniable. A promising newspaper owner, a king, a young army officer, a husband, every single one met with ruin or even death after entering her orbit. This was not a string of bad luck. Lola's instability seeped into her lovers' lives. Her chaos became their chaos. Her problems, well, they became their problems.
And this isn't just some old history lesson. This is a diagnostic checklist for right now. You can recognize infectors by the turbulence of their lives, a past that's just filled with drama, a long line of failed relationships, and this tendency to always be the victim. They often have this really intense personality that draws you in, but you'll notice chaos seems to follow them everywhere. And that is not a coincidence. That is their character.
So how in the world does this infection actually spread? Well, it's pretty simple. Humans are sponges. We are just extremely susceptible to the moods, the emotions, and even the thought patterns of the people we spend our time with. The infection isn't some big, single event. It's a slow, quiet, creeping process.
It usually starts unconsciously, right? You just start absorbing their anxiety or their bitterness. Then, before you know it, that instability starts to compromise your own judgment. You start making decisions you normally wouldn't. And then comes the depletion. You feel drained mentally, emotionally, maybe even financially. And the final stage? Enmeshment. That's when you actually hear yourself justifying their bad behavior. And at that point, the infection is complete.
But hey, it is not all doom and gloom. This law has a really powerful positive flip side. Because just as misery is contagious, so are positive qualities. You can actually use this whole principle of emotional osmosis to your advantage. Just think about it for a second. When you're around confident people, you start to feel more confident, right? When you're around disciplined people, you become more disciplined. Napoleon, who was a pretty coarse guy from Corsica, famously kept the super charming Talleyrand by his side, just hoping to soak up some of the grace he didn't have. We can all do the same thing. Associate with happy and fortunate people, and you start to share in the prosperity they naturally draw to themselves. So, how can you tell the difference? How do you spot who's who? Well, here is a super simple but powerful litmus test. After you spend time with someone, just ask yourself this one question. Do I walk away feeling clearer and more focused, or do I feel heavier, kind of confused and drained? Your own emotional response is the best diagnostic tool you have, period.
And that brings us to the final, most critical takeaway here. There is only one solution for dealing with a chronic infector: quarantine. And this isn't about trying to fix them. You can't. Trying to help them doesn't make you a noble person, it just makes you the next victim. And to do this, you have to adopt what I call the rule of effects. Forget what people say. Forget their excuses, forget their sob stories. Instead, look only at the results. Look at the tangible, real-world effects they have on the environment around them. That is the only data that matters.
Ask yourself these questions. When this person gets involved in a project, do things get better or do they just fall apart? Do they bring solutions to the table or do they just create more problems? And here's the big one. Do they own their mistakes or is it always someone else's fault? The answers to these questions will tell you everything you need to know.
So once you recognize that pattern, you have to act, flee their presence, create distance. And listen, this is not a moral failing on your part. It is not cruel. It is a fundamental act of emotional hygiene. It is survival. Just remember this, you cannot outwork someone else's self-destruction.
And so we end up right where we began. This isn't just some clever line. It's a prescription for a healthier, more powerful life. The people you choose to associate with will either lift you up or they will drag you down. The choice ultimately is yours. Choose wisely.